Amidst the intricate tapestry of international relations, a distinctive group of African leaders has emerged, distinguished by their unwavering determination to chart an independent course. Unfettered by Western influence, they steadfastly defy the pressures exerted upon them and confront head-on the biases and double standards inherent in the global narrative. Their resolute voices echo across the continent, resonating with a potent message of sovereignty and self-determination. With fearless conviction, these leaders navigate the complex dynamics of international diplomacy, fearlessly speaking their minds and making bold decisions that challenge the established order. In an era where Western countries and their media often hold sway, these African trailblazers carve out a unique space for themselves, unapologetically asserting their values and visions for their nations. Through their unwavering commitment to authenticity and unwavering resolve, they become beacons of hope, inspiring a new generation and reshaping the narrative of African leadership on the global stage. That said, here are 9 African leaders who aren't afraid of taking on the West and its media. Be sure to like this video, comment, share with others, and subscribe to the New Africa channel for more exciting future videos. President Nana Akufo-Addo of Ghana stands firm in his opposition to the imposition of the LGBTQ agenda on Ghana and the wider African continent. Despite facing scrutiny and being pressed on Ghana's anti-LGBTQ stance in various interviews, Akufo-Addo consistently asserts that it is not a priority for the Ghanaian people. In a video recorded at a church, he unequivocally states that homosexuality will never be legalized under his presidency, reiterating his unwavering commitment to the holding Ghanaian and African values and culture, in contrast to Western agendas and pressures. Akufo-Addo's resolute stance reflects his belief in the importance of preserving Ghana's cultural identity and maintaining the sovereignty of African nations, even in the face of external pressures.
I've said this before, and let me in conclusion stress again that it will not be under the presidency of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo that same-sex marriage will be legal. That same-sex marriage will be legalized in Ghana. It will never happen in my time as president. Let me repeat, it will never happen in my time as president.
President Felix Tshisekedi's resolute rebuke of French President Emmanuel Macron encapsulates the sentiments of not only his own citizens in the Democratic Republic of Congo, but also resonates with the broader African perspective. By boldly challenging France's imperious attitude and calling for a shift in the European approach towards Africa, Tshisekedi exemplifies the fearlessness of African leaders who are unafraid to speak their minds. His impassioned plea for Europe to abandon condescension and embrace a relationship of equals reflects the long-standing frustration felt by many African nations who yearn to be respected as true partners rather than recipients of paternalistic attitudes. Tshisekedi's unequivocal stance serves as a rallying cry for Africa at large, demanding a recalibration of the power dynamics and a genuine recognition of the continent's agency and autonomy.
Ça doit changer dans la manière de coopérer avec la France et l'Europe. Regardez-nous autrement, en nous respectant, en nous considérant comme de vrais partenaires, et non pas toujours avec un regard paternaliste, avec l'idée de toujours savoir ce qu'il faut pour nous et non pas pour...
Voilà. Si le président Tshisekedi m'y autorise, je voudrais apporter un commentaire au commentaire. Je m'explique. Parce que le président a parlé de la France en répondant à la question. Quand un ou une journaliste française pose une question, ça n'est pas le gouvernement de la France. Et c'est bien comme ça. Mais il ne faut pas tout confondre. Parce que, non, mais c'est pas une position de la France.
Je faisais allusion...
Parce qu'il n'y a pas de, il y en a eu.
Je faisais allusion au propos de Le Drian. Lui, il est officiel français.
Oui, mais...
Le compromis à l'africaine, c'est Le Drian, c'est pas la journaliste.
C'est exact, mais ce compromis... Mais cette formule, Président...
The West has garnered a reputation for its selective adherence to international rules and laws, often invoking them only when it serves their interests while neglecting to apply them uniformly in all circumstances. This double standard has not gone unnoticed by South Africa's top diplomat, Naledi Pandor, who, like many other Africans and unbiased observers, has grown weary of this unequal treatment. With a resolute voice, Pandor fearlessly calls out the West, aiming to foster a more equitable and just international scene where the principles and rules of international law apply to everyone equally. Her courageous stance resonates with those seeking a more balanced global order, where nations are held accountable based on universal standards rather than the whims of powerful nations. By challenging the West's double standards, Pandor advocates for a more inclusive and fair international system that upholds the principles of justice and equality for all.
I think this notion of international rules is very comfortable for some people to use when it suits them, but they don't believe in international rules when it doesn't suit them, because they don't apply international rules or law equally in all circumstances. So you can't say, because Ukraine has been invaded, that suddenly sovereignty is important, but it was never important for Palestine.
While Mali's interim president, Colonel Assimi Goïta, may not be as outspoken as some other African leaders in expressing his dissatisfaction with the West, he proves that actions speak louder than words. As the head of Mali's ruling junta, Goïta has taken decisive practical measures to assert Mali's independence. He has banned the activities of all non-governmental organizations financed or supported by France, including those involved in humanitarian work. Furthermore, Goïta has ousted French media outlets like France 24 and RFI from Mali, citing biased reportage, and in 2022, he ordered the departure of French troops who had been in the country for nearly a decade without significant progress in addressing Mali's terrorism challenges. Colonel Goïta's actions demonstrate his commitment to asserting Mali's sovereignty and challenging the perceived influence and shortcomings of the West in addressing Mali's security concerns. In his pragmatic approach, he embodies the saying that actions speak louder than words, leaving a lasting impact on Mali's relationship with Western powers and reshaping the country's trajectory. The West's unmistakable obsession with China's growing influence in Africa is rooted in their fear of losing their own hold on the continent. Continuously prying into Africa's flourishing partnership with China, the West finds itself rebuffed by Namibia's president, who firmly believes that the matter is none of their business. President Jacob emphasizes that Chinese presence in Africa is a decision for Africans to contemplate, not Europeans. Moreover, he asserts that the Chinese serve as superior development partners compared to the West, treating African nations as equals and respecting their cultural values without imposing moralistic viewpoints or agendas, such as LGBTQ issues. Jean Gao effectively confronted Norbert Lammert, former president of the German Bundestag, when he raised concerns about the presence of more Chinese in Namibia than Germans, highlighting the need for the West to stop attempting to dictate Africa's alliances. It is high time for the West to shift its focus towards treating Africa as an equal partner if they genuinely desire Africa to reconsider its ties with China and foster a more balanced relationship based on mutual respect and cooperation.
Whereas in Namibia, for example, the number of Chinese people living here in the meantime is 4 times as much as, for example, the German community. And so far, it's not precisely the same what takes place all over the world. There are differences. And what I'm...
Mr. Speaker, what is your problem with that? Why does it become a problem? it looks like it's a more European problem than our problem.
Yeah.
You are so sorry for us. I don't see Chinese will never come and play around here. As Germans not allowed to do that, which Germans are doing, by the way. You talk about Chinese. We allow Germans to come offer visas here. Red carpet. Our people are harassed in Germany. Even diplomatic passport holders in Germany. And you come in here, Germans come in here as they want. So why Chinese talk about Germans? How we are treating us there? Chinese don't treat us like that. Diplomatic passport. We're coming back from Geneva. These people were held up at the airport. Just now, last week, in Germany. We know what we will handle our own country. Don't be sorry for us.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Every time Westerner comes, it's about Chinese. What is the problem? In Namibia, everyone knows Chinese? Did you tell Western Namibians that Chinese have overtaken Namibia? Not on my watch. No. I told Chinese ambassador, yeah, I'm not your puppet. It was impressed everywhere. So please, respect us. That's all I would say. It shows disrespect. That we are children who are going to be cajoled by Chinese or so. No. Chinese are coming in infrastructure all over Africa. And I saw in America, they are there. Who bailed Americans out from the financial crisis? Chinese money is there. So why small Namibia, who fought Germans, even Germans were fighting with you? You are tough people. Now Chinese will come and, after our sovereignty, come and decolonize us. You think so? Germans cannot succeed, even those Germans who are here. So please, at every European coming is about Chinese.
South African opposition leader Julius Malema consistently champions the sovereign right of South Africa and African nations to forge their own alliances, even if they defy Western preferences. Malema staunchly defends South Africa's decision to align with Russia despite Western disapproval. In his notable interview with BBC's Stephen Sacker, he boldly expressed that he would supply Russia with weapons if he held the presidency. Malema fearlessly highlights the double standards of the West by pointing out the calls for the arrest of leaders like Putin in the context of the Ukraine war, while prominent figures like Obama, George Bush, and Tony Blair, who have been accused of war crimes, have evaded legal consequences. Malema's unwavering defense of South Africa's autonomy and his willingness to challenge Western narratives and biases solidify his position as a vocal advocate for African nations' right to choose their own friends and pursue independent foreign policies.
Let's take one particular aspect of your policy positions.
Yes.
Do you think aligning yourself with Vladimir Putin is going to be good for South Africa?
But that's what it is now. South Africa is in alliance with Russia, with India, with Brazil, with China. So why are you asking me as if it's some policy that is going to be implemented
South Africa right
after
now.
I took over? South Africa is in alliance with Russia now.
South Africa right now calls itself non-aligned.
In the context of the war, but these are two different things. South Africa is an ally of Russia. Now, the second question is, where does South Africa stand on the war? It says I'm a non-aligned in relation to war, but Russia remains South Africa's friend. So we cannot create confusion around there. Don't create an impression that it is Malema who's going to come and create an alliance with Russia.
But there are some very specific...
Actually, I will
so.
go beyond that. I will go beyond the friendship with Russia, and in the war, I will align with Russia, and I will even supply the weapons to Russia. Because Russia is in a war with imperialism, and any agenda that seeks to push back imperialist agendas, it's well within the policies of the EFF.
You say, quite clearly, I would arm Vladimir Putin.
Yes.
You know that the International Criminal Court wants Vladimir Putin to face war crimes charges.
It must start with Tony Blair. It must start with George Bush. It must go to Barack Obama. Then it can go to Putin.
So let's get this straight. You're saying to me that your policy, if you were in power in South Africa, is quite simple. That your enemy's enemy, and it seems you regard the US and its allies as the enemy,
Yes.
your enemy's enemy
Yes.
is your friend. Never mind if he's a suspected war criminal, never mind if the UN and the ICC say they have compelling evidence of Russian war crimes. You don't care. As far as you're concerned, my enemy's enemy is my friend.
You're exaggerating, but another point which you don't want me to go there is that Tony Blair accepted that they were wrong about Saddam Hussein to an extent that he did an apology of a thug, right? You have never called for his arrest. A man admitting that I was wrong.
The West's insistence on having all 54 African leaders attend summits has long been criticized as both demeaning and inefficient. Recognizing the impracticality and the trivialization of such gatherings, leaders like William Ruto advocate for a more effective approach. Ruto proposes that Africa can be represented as a continent by special envoys who engage with Western leaders in a more substantial and practical manner, allowing for meaningful discussions and ensuring that conferences transcend mere picture-taking opportunities. This approach respects the autonomy and dignity of African leaders, eliminating the notion of being summoned like children by world leaders. By advocating for a shift in how African engagement is structured, Ruto emphasizes the need for constructive dialogue and a more equitable platform for Africa's voice to be heard and respected on the global stage.
It will not going to be business as usual. We have these meetings, Africa-US meeting, Africa-Europe, Africa-Turkey, Africa-India. Now we are waiting for, there is another one, Africa-Russia. And Africa-Japan. And Africa-Japan. We have made the decision that it is not intelligent for 54 of us to go and sit before one gentleman from another place. And sometimes we are mistreated. Yeah. You know, we are loaded into buses like school kids. You know, and it's not right. Well, you are summoned. You know, it's not right. So the decision that we have made as AU is that going forward, if there is going to be a discussion between Africa and any other country, we are going to be represented by the chair, the outgoing chair, the bureau, chair of the commission, and the chair, and the chair of the Rex, and we have 5 Rex. That should be sufficient for, a meeting of maybe 6-7. Yeah. That should be able to represent Africa. And that is the position I am taking as the president of Kenya. For any other meeting that we are going to have with all these requests that we have a meeting between Africa and one other country, we respect the sovereignty of others. I think to ask for reciprocation is not to ask for too much. No.
President Paul Kagame of Rwanda has emerged as a formidable voice against neocolonialism, fearlessly confronting Western authorities and their media with unwavering resolve. With unapologetic zeal, Kagame consistently challenges the condescending approach of Western countries and media outlets towards Africa, becoming a beacon of hope for Pan-Africanists and proud Africans alike. Through his incisive video interviews and impassioned summit speeches, Kagame fearlessly exposes the fallacy of Western nations positioning themselves as the sole custodians of values, while implying that everyone else must follow suit. His unwavering mission is to rectify the misleading narrative that the West alone embodies values, emphasizing that Africans too possess rich and distinct values that deserve recognition and respect. Kagame's audacious stance not only inspires his fellow Africans, but also emboldens a global audience to reconsider the preconceived notions of Western superiority and embrace a more inclusive understanding of diverse cultural values.
Now, let me start with the issue of values. Who defines the values? Or who doesn't actually have values? When people talk about values sometimes, there's one part of the world that has assumed the sole responsibility and the monopoly of defining values. So the rest of us have no values. We've just to keep learning from these ones who define the values. And by the way, the danger also is, it doesn't matter how long you take learning, you will never qualify. You will just always be branded somebody who has no values or who comes from a place where there are no values. So I want to put this case clear. Those from the north who always assume where BBC comes from, who always think they are the face of values, the rest have to follow. It's a big mistake. It's not true. We have values too. We here in Rwanda, in Africa, we do. No question about it.
Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni has carved out a controversial reputation for his staunch opposition to Western influence and his unwavering stance against homosexuality. In May 2023, he signed into law what is considered one of the world's most stringent anti-gay legislations, a move he justified as necessary to protect Uganda's deeply ingrained values and traditions, which he believes are incompatible with homosexuality. Despite facing intense criticism and the threat of economic sanctions from Western powers, Museveni remains resolute in his conviction that homosexuality is an anomaly that does not align with Ugandan or African culture. He calls for the West to respect this fact and refrain from imposing what he perceives as an LGBTQ agenda on Africa.
There's no way, because the homosexual, the few cases which we had here were definitely deviations from the normal. They are deviations from the normal. They are deviants. They are not the normal. Now, the mistake of the Western, some of the Western groups, and I'm glad to see these people, wonderful people like the ones who are here, to know that in the West there are some still human beings who believe in normal life. They attempt to if there is a deviation from normal, if there is an abnormality, how would you seek to universalize an abnormality? And how would you seek to establish an abnormality as an alternative way of life? There are two ways of life, the normal and the abnormal, and then you put it there. If there is an abnormality, why don't you seek to treat the abnormality? And to isolate it, not to spread it. So definitely there's something wrong with these groups, the leadership in the West. There must be some some serious issue there, some structural problem. I can't know what it is because I have studied human evolution and philosophy. There's nothing, but there's something that's funny that is going on in some of these places. So therefore, we shall, when the bill comes, I will call you people, the MPs of Uganda, we shall sit down. Now we have the answer now. We seem to have the answer for the homosexuals. It seems they are, in fact, it doesn't seem. What was clear was that there were deviants, but what I was wondering was whether the deviation is caused by the hormones or by the psychology. Now it seems it is more the psychology than the biochemistry.
That concludes our video on the 9 African leaders who aren't afraid of taking on the West and its media. Remember to like the video, comment your thoughts, share the videos, and subscribe to the New Africa channel for more informative and exciting future videos. Until next time, it's bye for now.